Hey guys, it's Alexandra. Today I'm going to be talking with Sequoia, who is a Black female creator that I recently noticed when she was talking about everything that's been going on with Khloe Kardashian in the news. If you don't know, a photo of Khloe was leaked recently and it was unphotoshopped and unedited, and it looked a lot different than the body that she shows online. So we're going to be talking about kind of that whole portrayal of Black women in the media and how that figure of having a big butt and a small waist is kind of toxic to the beauty standard because a lot of it's rooted in traditionally Black features. So I think that's important to note. We're going to be diving into workplace diversity, the Black Lives Matter movement, blackfishing that's happening online that's creating a lot of controversy. I think the discussions that you're going to be hearing in our interview are really important and will hopefully change your perspective a little bit. So I hope that you will stay tuned to check out our talk and subscribe for more videos. All right, thank you so much.
Black people, do y'all feel like you're not allowed to be a whole human in interracial public spaces like work, school? Like, you're not allowed to have the full range of human emotions like everybody else is. Even if someone does something to you that warrants an angry response, you're not allowed to have that angry response, even if that's the appropriate response. Because when you're angry, you're this big, black, menacing, terrifying beast. So, I know you think you're being nice when you call a Black woman strong, but you're actually dehumanizing her and adding to the myth that Black people are stronger and don't feel pain the same way other people do. Crazy, right? Colorism is the discrimination against people with a darker skin complexion. Futurism is discrimination against people with non-European features. To further clear it up, let's grab some references. Miss Kelly Rowland falls victim to colorism but not futurism. Same with Miss Justine. Then we have Megan, who falls victim to featureism, but not colorism. Same with Cardi B. I see one, Miss Khloe Kardashian is trending for this little image right here today. I see a lot of talk about how people feel bad for her and she looks so beautiful and she has body dysmorphia, yada yada. And I kind of get what y'all are saying, but I kind of don't. The Kardashian clan as a whole is a detriment to society with very few redeemable qualities about any of them. And let me give you a few examples why. For years, Black women have been telling the Kardashians your insistence on wearing cornrows, your obsession with darkening your skin complexion, and your surgically altered body to resemble that of a Black woman is offensive to us. If some group of people is telling you something you're doing is offensive and you don't stop doing it, you're a bad person, like officially a bad person. For years, the Kardashians have been the most visible women in society, pretty much, and they have been denying all plastic surgery claims. This affects literally everyone. It gives men unrealistic standards of what women look like and gives women unrealistic standards. Meanwhile, they profit off our insecurities, selling us flat tummy teas and other shit that won't give us the results their surgically enhanced bodies gave them. I say all this to say they're trash. Continue to make fun of them. Yeah, so for years now, I have kind of had thoughts and feelings about the Kardashians as a whole. I am under the impression that ignorance is one thing. Like, it's fine if you don't know that something that you're doing is offensive, because that can be corrected. If someone tells you, like, hey, you're actually offending a pretty big group of people here when you do X, Y, and Z. And it's really important to point out that the group has to be marginalized. That's something that I feel like I didn't make clear enough in the TikTok video that I made that I want to make clear now. The group has to be marginalized, and if a marginalized group is repeatedly telling you something you're doing is offensive and you do not stop doing it, it makes you whatever the ism is that you are perpetrating. So in the Kardashians case, it would be racism. In some other cases, there's sexism and homophobia and a plethora of other isms that there could be. But I took this opportunity of Khloe's trending picture to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, have written about in previous times, to capitalize off of it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about just like, I feel like at least not really growing up, but especially I can see it affecting people a little bit younger than me, which is sad. It doesn't really affect me anymore because it's kind of not my influence as much as maybe it was if I was in middle school or high school. But I think there's definitely this increased photoshopping of like a very specific body type.
Definitely.
And it's like, it's so targeted that and I think that I never related it to race until I started learning, like, oh, that's stuff that like Black women have always had. Like, and now it's trendy because the Kardashians have that body.
Exactly. And like,
Well,
aside from Black women always having it, Black women were ridiculed for it. And
right.
like, if you look at magazines in the 90s, what was in at that time was really skinny, and people were actively making it seem like having a larger butt was the equivalent of being fat, which in itself is fat phobic, which is problematic in its own sense. But pretty much it was never good to have a bigger butt until the Kardashians did so. And it's offensive when a trait is considered derogatory or negative or bad on one group of people and another group takes it without giving credit to the initial group. Not saying that anyone can have a big butt because anyone can. It just so happens the Kardashians do so much to imitate Black women that I'm left to believe their obsession with bigger butts it only comes from that place as well. Um, but yeah, it's like a new thing that this is a trend, and the Kardashians are praised for something that Black women have been brutalized for centuries, honestly.
Yeah. So do you think, like, I thought one thing that was interesting is that when that photo came out, people were having a lot of sympathy for her and saying like she has been bullied in relation to her sisters. And like, of course, she doesn't think she looks good enough. She's never going to feel like she looks good enough. But then, and I did see a lot of that, which was really, it surprised me because usually any news about them, people are like instant haters, but it was like I was kind of surprised to see that reaction from people. So I thought it was interesting that you brought up like that her having body dysmorphia isn't really the issue here.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's not necessarily the issue because first of all, her and her family created the beauty standard that they're now being held to, which I can't say that I don't feel for Khloe because genuinely I do. I can only imagine how difficult it is to grow up in a family where you look different from the rest of your sisters and you were told that you're uglier than. As a woman, there's this obsession with being like small, dainty, and petite, and for you not to be that and all of your sisters to be that. I can only imagine the psychological toll that that takes on anyone, and I'm not going to pretend like Khloe's different than any normal person in that circumstance. That said, Khloe makes a good amount of money off of women's insecurities. So it's like my body looks like this and you should buy my jeans and yours will too. It's like, but you're not being fully honest here. Your body looks like that because you bought it, not because your genes gave you that body. Or, you can say things, same thing about Kim and her shapewear, or I don't even know what Courtney's doing with her life at this point. But yeah, you can say this about all of the Kardashians that they falsely advertise in order to make their own money. And now Khloe is upset that she is being held to the standard that she's been falsely advertising us
Right.
and making money off of our insecurities.
Definitely. And I think another like interesting thing that you brought up, not just about the Kardashians, but like other people in pop culture today, is the whole colorism versus futurism thing. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that video also, TikTok is like such an interesting platform because obviously you don't have the time to delve into the
Right.
nuances of things. So futurism is a subset of colorism. Um, Colorism is a broad term that's used to just, I guess specifically in the Black community, it's more so Afrocentric versus Eurocentric. So if
Mhm.
you are more Afrocentric, that includes your skin complexion. If it is darker, which will align with Afrocentric as opposed to lighter, which aligns with Eurocentric, you will see an issue. But futurism focuses specifically on the piece of colorism that is about your facial features or your body features as opposed to the actual pigmentation in your skin. So I find that a lot of the times when we're talking about colorism, people understand it as simply a color thing. So I felt the need to clarify that there's something deeper than just a color thing when it comes to colorism. You can also be talking about the width of someone's nose or the plumpness of someone's lips or the texture of someone's hair. But people kind of pretend those things don't exist when they are talking about. I feel like the term colorism is limiting in that way, in that it specifies color when there's a little bit more to it. So I wanted to specify futurism as well.
Right. And do you think um it's kind of a twofold thing that I see a lot of white women who are, I think people saying that you're um doing blackface when you're tanning has become kind of a TikTok obsession that I've noticed recently,
Mhm.
of or you're blackfishing and stuff like that. So what is the line of when it's offensive and when it's not?
I can't say exactly what the line is when it is or is not offensive. I will say I don't have a particular issue with tanning. Like, I think there's tanning, and I think there is painting your body a color that makes people question what race you actually are. A lot of the times, I'll give an example that I personally feel. There's Ariana Grande, who has been accused of blackfishing for a while now. I don't feel that anyone wonders if Ariana Grande is a black woman or not based on just what she looks like. I'm like, sure, she's a little darker because she's tanning, but she does not appear that she is trying to mimic the appearance of a different race ever to me. And then you have Kim Kardashian, who consistently has cornrows, has facial augmentation to make her appear a little bit more ethnically ambiguous, I will say. And then on top of those two things, she will go ahead and darken her skin complexion as well. So that makes me wonder what your intent is.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what are the implications of you going out into the world looking so ambiguous, but not actually being all that ambiguous?
Right. And I think it's interesting that you have like those people trying to resemble Black women, but then you also have a category of Black women who are trying to be whiter, who are trying to, who
Yeah.
aren't proud and are trying to, and I think that's unfortunate too. So do you see any of that going on?
Yeah, there are definitely instances of skin bleaching and skin lightening that we see in the Black community. I will say the difference between the tanning that goes on in the white community specifically and the skin bleaching that goes on in the Black community is skin bleaching comes from a place of wanting to assimilate to the cultural norm, having been told that you are ugly your entire life because you are Black and because your facial features are a little bit more Afrocentric as opposed to Eurocentric, because your skin is deeper and because your hair is coarser and curlier. You're trying to do anything in your power to, one, feel beautiful, two, be treated as a normal human that you see a lot of other people being treated as. And this goes as deep as job stuff and like societal stuff like that. You're more likely to find a job if you're lighter. So essentially, you're trying to survive. If you are a Black woman and you are straightening your hair, for instance, it's a survival tactic, whether they are cognitively aware of it or not. Or if you are trying to bleach your skin, survival tactic. A lot of people make fun of it and make light of it, but it's actually very serious and very sinister. It comes from a very sinister place of having been told that you were not enough as you are as a human being for your entire life.
Yeah, that makes sense. I figured that, that's what's tricky. Like, I think the line now is like, people aren't understanding. I see some reactions whenever I hear something about a white woman trying to resemble a Black woman, whether it's features or skin color or whatever. You see people saying, well, isn't that a compliment? Like, aren't they like trying to like,
right.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they trying to like show that they're embracing another culture or whatever?
Right.
And so I think that's important that you said that, because I think that's a huge disconnect.
Right. Yeah, no, that definitely is. And it's illogical. I understand how people get there. It's very logical. It's like, yeah, but Black women also try to lighten their skin. So why is it a big deal when white women try to darken their skin? And it's a big deal because it's a lot more nuanced than, it's not a one-to-one. Those are not
right.
equal. We're not starting off on equal playing fields.
Yeah. And you talk about, you mentioned like white women are more likely to get jobs and stuff like that, and workplace inequalities. That's something you bring up a lot in your videos, and I think that's really important. So
that was a really good transition. Yeah.
So what are some of those workplace inequalities that you still deal with?
So currently I actually work for a Black owned company, so I'm not dealing with the workplace inequalities that I have previously been dealing with. But previously, I will say I found it difficult as someone who identifies as an introvert as well as a Black woman, because it seems like society, workplaces specifically, predominantly white workplaces, when you are an introverted Black woman, expect you to present in one specific type of way. They're used to seeing Black women who are sassy, funny, entertaining. And when you are not sassy, funny, or entertaining, people tend to assume that it's because you do not like them, but that's not the reason. That's just not my personality. But people seem less comfortable with personalities placed on Black women that they're not used to seeing.
Right. And I think there's also a big push right now to have diversity in your workplace. Do you think that's being approached the right way?
No, actually, I don't. That's a really good question as well. I don't think the approach to diversity in the workplace is being approached the correct way at all. Right now, it seems like it is a checklist item, something that people are focused on because it's trendy. I will say starting June of last year, June of 2020 is when I started noticing the company I was working for at the time, as well as previous companies that I have worked for, focusing on diversity when that hadn't been an issue that they had been concerned with previous. And it feels very much like a checklist item, like I said before, like a quota that you are trying to fill, something that you are trying to make sure that you are keeping up with the times with, as
Mhm.
opposed to something that you are passionate about or actually care about. I also will say diversity is different than inclusion, and people tend to lump those two things together. So you can hire a bunch of people of color, but if those people don't feel included in the work culture, or the work culture is not conducive to people of color, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to retain those people of color. They're going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also tricky because during like, especially since George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement has really like taken a lot of action, and it's become a big thing. And I think that gets a little dangerous because it's not really supposed to be like a trending topic. It's supposed to be a movement. So I
Right.
think it's hard when, like, as a white person, I can at least say a lot of people that I know have this panic of like, you don't want to come across like you're racist, and you want to come across like you're supporting a movement, even if you don't really know about it. You want to like jump on it really quick to
That.
make sure like you're covering your ass, basically. And I think that's not like the point of it.
Right.
But I think that's kind of the attitude that some people have of they will be overly supportive because they're scared that they're
Yeah.
sounding racist.
Totally. And I totally get that. And what I would say to those folks is just make sure that when this time comes around again, you are better educated on the matter so that you don't feel so scared and feel like you're rushing to support something that you're not super familiar with or super aware of. Make sure that you are very familiar with it and very aware of it, because these things happen like clockwork. So while George Floyd's situation is very sad, it is one of many and likely will continue to be one of many. So next time, instead of worrying like, oh, I have to say something because I don't want to seem racist, just have the homework done ahead of time so you are comfortable,
Right.
and so that you've been leading up to this, you've been doing this, you know.
And then you even have other movements, like aside from Black Lives Matter, I've even learned that the body positivity movement didn't start, it started as a Black thing. Is that right?
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of
So
that.
I've seen a lot of creators come forward and be like, these people that are like preaching body positivity, I don't think they realize like where it's rooted from.
Mm.
And so I think that even builds, that just reminds me of the whole Kardashian thing. And it's like, I think it's just, I don't know, it gets messy. And I think it's hard when, especially like people, and it kind of goes along with people trying not to sound racist, trying really hard not to sound racist,
Yeah.
to the point where they will, and I've used this before, so I'm glad you brought this up in one of your videos, because I've definitely used the word strong before. I've definitely
Mhm.
said that,
Yeah.
thinking it's a compliment.
Right.
And it was like so interesting to hear you say like you could use so many other terms, and this is why that's not empowering to say you're
Right.
so strong. So can you talk a little on that?
Yeah, I'll say strong Black woman is so cliched at this time that it doesn't even hold any meaning anymore. The term strong when referring to Black women means nothing anymore, because that's the go-to word when you're describing Black women. That said, to hear it as a Black woman feels dehumanizing. It feels like you cannot see my personhood and you only see me as this strong fortress that can take whatever without needing support, without needing to be pampered, without needing love. And I need all of those things all of the time, from a lot of different places. So that's how it feels for me as a Black woman when I hear someone say, "Oh, you're so strong." It's like a little cringe. I'm like, I'm so many other things. Like,
Right.
sure, I don't even know where people are getting strong from. I may or may not be strong. I don't know. I don't identify with the term particularly, but I also don't not identify with it, you know? I'm just like, yeah, strong, I guess you can call me that, but you can also call me a lot of other things that
Yeah,
I would prefer to be called and that I do specifically identify with.
definitely. Do you think do you feel like things are improving for Black women as far as like
Um,
equality goes? And I, because
uh,
it's just hard to see. It's hard to, I feel
yeah.
like when you're on the end of the side and when you're on the end of the stick where you're the privileged one, you
Yeah.
like just think everything's getting better.
Mhm.
And you don't really know. You just think because you're advocating, therefore it's getting better. You're
Yeah.
posting, therefore you're helping solve the problem. And you don't really get to hear like from the side of the people that are being oppressed. Do you really feel like it's getting better or not really?
It's kind of hard to say. I'm trying to think of instances where I felt like, you know what, this is better. And unfortunately, I cannot. I feel like I've been dealing with the same microaggressions since I was literally a child. Um, I guess I will say when you're a child, children are obviously a lot less aware of what's coming out of their mouth. So it would be less micro, more macro aggressions, just more blatant things. I'm dealing with a lot less blatant things now, but the fact that it's less blatant can even be a little bit more sinister because people genuinely, like you said, do feel like they're doing better and like it is getting better. So it's coming across it comes across as like, well, what are you complaining about? Like, I didn't call you a name, like you haven't been abused, or like, what are you complaining about? But I'm complaining because it doesn't feel right. Like, it's not right. This is not right. I'm still being treated subhumanly. It's not an actual word, but that's how I feel like I'm being treated.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it's dehumanizing. It feels like I'm just like this strong fortress, and that's about it to you.
It's also got to be hard because people want to make everything racial nowadays. And so it makes those times when something really is racial, it doesn't hold the same value because people just think you're pulling out another thing. And that's like,
No.
yeah, that's not, I see that, especially I think it has to do with social media and people don't have to actually interact. So they're like, they can say whatever they want. I
Yeah.
don't think they have to deal with any of the consequences of it.
Yeah.
So I think there's all kinds of like internet debates that have to do with race that people I feel like wouldn't say if they were in front of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there are definitely a lot of things that people say on the internet that they would not necessarily say if they were in front of you. And that's the thing about the internet. It kind of took away that fear of something potentially going wrong in that moment. Should you say something
Right.
disrespectful or incorrect, there is no fear that someone's going to just retaliate really quickly because they cannot reach you. So you can say whatever it is that you want with very little fear that you will be in harm's way or in danger for saying whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So what do you think are like the most effective ways that people can raise Black voices um, in the way that, it's the way that the movement's supposed to be, the breaking down of the system? Obviously, it's something that's going to take years and years and years. It's not like you can change it over this next year. It's going to be like fixed.
Right.
But what are some ways we can raise Black voices in a way that will actually reach people?
I think that non-Black people with a platform can use their platform like you are now to bring on Black folks and let them tell their stories, explain their thoughts, feelings around whatever it is that they're being asked. I think aside from that, another way to help Black people specifically, in my opinion, is in times of protest. I think it's helpful when non-Black people also protest because there's a lot of physical danger that comes along with being at a protest. And as we've seen repeatedly, police do not halt at physical danger when it's toward Black people, but are a little bit more hesitant when there are other people involved. So I feel like the more mixed the crowd can be, the more safe the crowd likely will be. So that's something that I think non-Black people can do that will help Black people in the long run. And then in corporate environments, I think that non-Black people can just be very aware of the language that they use, how inclusive they're being toward Black people in their workplace, school place, those types of things, and do their best to hire Black people.
So, well, thank you so much for all your input. I really enjoyed hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You had really good questions.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So it's just so important to me to like hear these voices because I hear so much of it not like speaking to the actual person.
Right.
It gets all messy on TikTok, especially. I'm like, I think I just need to understand this more because like it's going all sorts of ways. So
TikTok is no place for nuance. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing your voice too. Keep making videos. I'll definitely follow along. So
thank you.
Thanks so much. It was great to meet you.
Great meeting you.
All right, have a good one.
Do you need me to stay on, or do you have the recording? Are you good?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.